You can sit here at our stools here. Just 36 short months ago, Gene and I got to meet David for the first time. I have to admit, we had notes. We were supposed to ask these very specific and important questions, all right? Certain particular questions I had carefully written down, and David answered all of those questions. Then Gina, quite unexpectedly and out of the blue, looked him directly in the eye and said, "Can you truly keep up with us?" Remember that I
Remember that very well.
And I'm like, that wasn't in our notes. And when somebody says that, it's kind of like we're bad to the bone, watch us. And we were down on our luck praying for over a year. But you know what? That set everything into motion, because you said to her and me that, you know what? We can make up to $1 billion worth of patches right now. We got plenty of room to win, and you can count on me. And he never has missed the shipment or logistics of any X-39 since we started.
Well, we have a lot of good people at the corporate end that make all of that happen. And of course, we have continued to improve on our manufacturing. We've added state-of-the-art robotics, computerized visual detection systems, complete automation. So now, based on our current level of sales, we can still make more than triple the number of patches that we're making today. So you guys can go out and keep selling. No problem at all. We can make as many as you need.
No matter how fast the newest person in here is going to rocket their business, you can keep up with us.
Absolutely.
Wow. Thank you, Gina, for asking that question, because it motivated all of us to make it happen. So we're so honored and blessed to have you with us today with the This Is It team. And all of us here want to just thank you for everything that you're doing. You're nonstop. You're wanting to improve everybody, position all of us for success. And we want to all give you a special thank you, don't we, today?
If it wasn't for all of you, I wouldn't get the opportunity to be an inventor. So really, the appreciation is mine, and it's a privilege for me to be here today. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
You know what? Yeah. Also, I really appreciate everybody on the This Is It team, because they respect you, they honor you, and they know that you've got a busy life to come up with all the new innovations to keep us light years ahead of all the other competition. I
have currently more than 200 patents now, so there are probably a few inventions that you haven't seen yet that we're working on to be released in the coming years. And Steve, you and I talk about this quite a bit. And when we had our 20th anniversary, I know I'm going off of whatever script that is you have there. So sorry about that. When we had our conference last year, how many of you were at our conference last year? Okay. You guys excited about this year? It's going to be more awesome than you think it's going to be. I think I would say that. So last year we wanted the conference to be a way to say thank you for an incredible 20 years. So, we went the extra distance and had that 800 drone show. We had incredible speakers and, of course, incredible talent that came in. But this has become a theme that Meredith and I, and Janine now, we talk about all the time, is we need to have that mindset at corporate that we need to be appreciative and to find different ways to give back to the community for all of our success. So that's why we're thinking 5, 10 years and more into the future. On my side, I think about what kind of technologies can I develop today that are still going to be relevant many decades into the future. And maybe we'll cover it later, I don't know. But that's why we're developing power generation technology that's sustainable, clean for the environment, going to get rid of people's electric bills, charge their electric cars, generate cash each month. That's why we're doing those things, is to make this a sustainable business, to say thank you for letting us do what we do.
Thank you for doing that. All right?
And by the way, you and Gina get to see that technology this month, 2 weeks from now. You're actually going to see and touch that technology.
We cannot wait to get to Denmark with all the top elites in the business. All right? It's going to be fun. Thank you for the invitation. We're looking forward to it.
Oh, you guys won the trip, so congratulations. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. You know, you guys want to be the first to hear this? The only other person in here that knows this is Meredith. Janine may have overheard me speaking to her, but I tell you what, because it's a Saturday, right? I just got off a plane yesterday. It's a Saturday in Florida? Okay. You guys will be the first to hear this. So our power generation technology is so advanced that 1 week after we have the event in Denmark, I'm going to stay there because the Danish government invited me to a symposium on green energy with thousands of people, and I'm the keynote speaker.
You know, for those of the people that don't know, they're just getting started here in LifeWave, I'm blown away. And I use this as a point when I'm talking to somebody that is a little more educated in the industry as well. I love the global appeal that we have at LifeWave, where we're registered in Ireland. We've got manufacturing plants there. We have manufacturing plants in San Diego, correct?
In the US, we don't usually disclose the location, so it's somewhere within
the 50 states
of the US.
We've got a manufacturer plant. I mean, what company does not tell you where their plant is? Okay. But they never miss on the delivery. Okay. So, but then we have our world headquarters that's located in Utah. So I love that because for the Europeans, for the Asians, for the Americans, if you want to start thinking a global business, you're not going to find a better company than LifeWave.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I wanted to we talked a little bit, you and me, about this a while back, about the patch technology and how long. I know that the US government contracted you in 2004, but for them to contract you, you had to be doing some research even before that on the patch technology. How long have you really been working on this type of technology, or when did you start?
Yeah, this was around the late 1990s, specifically around the years 1997 and 1998. I had owned a business company with 5 additional other guys located in the state of Georgia. We were up in the mountains of Dahlonega, Georgia. We had our lab. That's the site of the gold rush, ironically. And yeah, we were developing survival equipment for the US Navy. We worked with government contractors, so we worked with companies like Newport News Shipbuilding in Virginia. We worked with General Dynamics, Electric Boat, Raytheon, GE. And basically, I was looking at new methods of generating power, new methods of generating oxygen. I came up with a number of patents on hydrogen production. And then I developed a technology that wasn't supposed to exist, wasn't supposed to be possible. And I was invited. I had made a few people upset about some of the claims that I made. And they invited me into a lab to give a presentation. And they had said, well, there's going to be 2 or 3 people there. And there ended up being over 30 people there. And they wanted to just prove me wrong and get me out of the building. So the technology that the Navy was using at the time on the sub was 60% efficient, and it had all these problems. And my technology was 99.99% efficient. So I got invited to be part of a design team for a mini sub. And back then, that was pretty state-of-the-art. It was a mini sub that was attaching to the Virginia-class sub, and the crew were Navy SEALs. So the objective was to see, since the SEALs were going on missions that were 30, 60 hours in length, what can we do to improve their survivability? So I went into this trying to think about how to get them off of caffeine and amphetamines so they could have more energy. It took about 3 years to develop the technology. And then in 2000, I was able to develop a new technology called amphetamine. 2001, 2002, I was starting to give presentations on the LifeWave patch technology to the military. Because of 9, as fate would have it, because of 9/11, they shifted. all towards defense mode, looking at weapons. And so the people that I worked with couldn't get in touch with them. So that's actually how I took the patches into the public, because I didn't want to just sitting around and the rest is history, as they say.
Wow. Now again, since the late 1990s till around 2020 is when the X39 came out. That is a life calling. You wonder why our technology, which I believe is the best technology, the best product at all in our industry. Nothing compares to it because it's been David's life calling, and it's such a superior product than anything else there. That is why we're having such success with your Lifeway business.
Thank you for doing that.
Were you dreaming to be into the network marketing industry when you first started out?
It's funny. So after I graduated from college, I lived with a good friend of mine, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to this meeting. Why don't you join me?" And I said, "What is it?" He goes, "Well, it's something about selling water filters." So this was for a network marketing business, and they were talking about making money. And I said, "Well, wait a minute, I don't get it. How are you putting silver into the carbon? I need an explanation." And nobody could answer my question, so I didn't join that company. And that kind of turned me off. And then in 2002, when I started LifeWave, I had to think about how we're going to take the product to market, and networking was the last thing on my mind. I thought, well, let's put it on TV. I was meeting with GNC. They wanted to put it in at retail. I thought about radio advertising, all these kind of things. And then I had lunch one day with a fellow that was a business friend, and he said, "Oh, there's somebody that you should talk to about LifeWave." I went and spoke with him. Then he had bumped into a guy in a movie theater that was interested in investing. Then I talked to him, and he said, "Oh, I want to invest money, but I don't know anything about science, but I have a friend who's a medical doctor. Can you talk to him?" And then the medical doctor said, "Well, I know a doctor in California you should talk to." And then that doctor said, "Oh, you got to talk to Richard Quick at Stanford University, the 6-time Olympic coach." And so it became very obvious that networking would be the best way. So 3 weeks after that lunch, I was putting patches on Olympic swimmers at Stanford.
Through a network?
All because of networking.
Wow.
I became convinced that networking was way to go.
Which is very interesting compared to any other owner in the network marketing industry who go out and sought out to make money, right? He didn't want to be in networking and goes into networking with such a superior product. That's what's happening today. Hey, does X39 basically work on everything?
Well, it depends on what you mean everything, but by far, it's the most powerful product that we have. Just a very quick background on it. Back in the late 2000s, I was doing what I'm doing today. I'm trying to think about what's going to be relevant 10, 20 years from now. And back in the late 2000s, I was thinking, well, stem cell therapy is going to be very relevant in the future. So we need to start investing in stem cell therapy, stem cell technology. Over a period of 10 years, we invested over 4 million, generated over 70 patents. We did work with Dr. Glenn Ryan in the US, in vitro lab work on stem cells, on looking to see about if we could regenerate peripheral nerves, which was successful. We worked with Dr. Norm Shield doing human studies. We worked with the university in Ireland. That was with a technology called the double helix conductor. We worked with Dr. Tim O'Brien at the National University of Ireland at the Regenerative Medicine Institute. And this is just all to say there was a lot of time and money that was put into trying to develop a new stem cell technology. And the miracle with X39 is that it's able to mobilize and activate the stem cells already in the body, so we don't have to inject them. And in the process, copper peptide resets thousands of genes to a more youthful state. So what that means is, if you're having a healthy diet with proper nutrition, supplementing where necessary, getting proper rest, getting exercise, drinking water, staying away from those things that are harmful, X39 is going to take your body to the next level.
Wow. You know how Gene and myself and our friends like to keep things simple? No, like you talk to us about these doctors and these institutes and everything, like, and I'm nodding my head like I know who they are, okay? But the fact that you know and you've done that kind of research is giving us all that kind of confidence. So every time you say that, I'm like, oh my gosh, look, we got our hands on. I don't tell anyone because you want to complicate it when you talk to somebody. But the fact that you have done that kind of research gives us the confidence that we've got the best product in the industry that we've ever seen, right?
We're pushing now. We're coming up on 90 studies. I think we're over 90 studies now. But we usually just say, you know, we're over 80 studies that we've done over the past 20 years. And it's really important for us to be a science-based company, that we have clinical studies that support safety and efficacy. And when we do these studies, we're always learning more about the products. And that helps us develop new products and explore new areas. So it's really important. On the note of simplicity, you wouldn't know this, but, well, you know that Meredith and I and Janine, we came in. We had been in Utah, and last week I was in Utah. We were doing a project, and there was a fellow that was in our office who is 94, 95, right around there. If I mention his name, you might know who he is. I think he's a friend of LifeWave, and he was having some problems with his arm. He had some shoulder pain from an accident he had been in, and he was very skeptical about the patches. So I put X39 on the back of the neck, and I put the Eon patch down along on his wrist, along the line of pain, and he got 40% pain relief just like that.
See?
So it's so simple to apply.
Yeah, question. I know we have a bunch of all the other patches that we have, as well as the X39. I know you've told me this on the X39, but when it comes to all our other patches, keeping it simple, can you basically put a patch, any one of the other patches, on your body anywhere, and it'll start affecting it?
Yeah, when we do the clinical studies, we'll do typically each patch separately, but sometimes we'll combine patches in a study. But for example, when you're placing X39 either behind the back of the neck or below the belly button, it's going to have a systemic effect. We have had people that have applied the patch at the site of an injury, such as down at their knee, on their shoulder, and that's totally fine. With stem cells, one of the important things to remember, and this was discovered at Sanford Burnham in La Jolla, California, by Dr. Evan Snyder, and I had the privilege of meeting with him. He's a very prominent stem cell scientist. And what Dr. Snyder had discovered is that it's inflammatory cytokines at the injury site that stem cells are attracted to. So some of you may have had injuries for quite a long time and you're not healing and you're wondering why. It's because your body is not managing inflammation properly. The stem cells get to the injury site, but then they die off from this inflammation. So this is one of the reasons why it's so important as we age to manage the inflammatory process, because it can inhibit healing. So with our patches, it can be as simple as X39 on the back of the neck, and then the glutathione patch or the Eon patch at the point of pain. That's going to reduce the inflammation, and that's going to help the body heal.
So pretty much any of our patches we could put anywhere. If we haven't know exactly where to, if you've got a pain somewhere, you could just stick it anywhere and it'll start being effective.
Yeah, absolutely. In our studies, we'll apply them behind the neck and below the belly button, but in real life, people will apply them pretty much anywhere. We've had people put carnosine patches in an eye mask and get better vision by putting them over their eyes. So we've had people experiment. There are nerves, this is called auricular therapy, that lead from the ear throughout the body. And sometimes just for fun, when I'm patching someone, they'll say, well, I have a sore back. And I could put a patch on the pain, but I'll think, all right, let me pinch their ear. Okay, if it's a guy, not a woman. My wife would be very upset if I did that. I pinched around the ear and I said, okay, there's the point right there. I'll patch that, and then the back pain goes away. So sometimes you can be really creative and have some fun with this.
That's interesting, keeping it simple. So you basically can put any patch anywhere, stick it, and it works. Do you have any questions at all? Okay, then moving on. Okay. David, 2 years ago on our team convention stage, you told me no one was even close to replicating the X39 technology. Where do we stand today? Has anyone come close, or do we still have something truly untouchable in our hands?
No one's ever duplicated it. I don't think anyone ever will. So, yeah, if you knew the process for making the patches, then of course it would be a little bit more clear. When we're doing patents, I always think about how can we get the best protection, and you have to build in some trade secrets. So there's a certain amount of information that you disclose, and then definitely a certain amount of information you don't disclose, because you keep that as a trade secret so people can't reverse engineer. And that's what we've done with the patches and many other of the other inventions. So yeah, in 20 years, more than 20 years now, no one's ever reversed engineered them. So I don't see that happening anytime soon.
I mean, we don't even know where they're made. And we're in the business. Think about our competitors. Right. Okay, so we already answered this one. We can keep up with the X-39s. When he talks about patents, I think about the This Is It team. I don't know, I just was thinking about this. Like he pops out patents like we pop out SPDs. Oh, that's actually a very good combination, right? We're out patching, he's making them, and we all are winning together.
You know, Steve, it's really worth talking about that just for a minute. Going off script again, sorry. Is that when one of the things, you know, the network marketing industry, we should start there, is having a real problem today. Because the business model that most other companies were working with was to find a juice or vitamin or something like that and then go to market with it. And honestly, I'm not knocking those companies. And back in the day, that business model was fine. But we're seeing this enormous change now in the economy, and people can just go online and order things from Amazon or wherever. And so the only real meaningful way to protect a business is to invent something, develop it, put it into manufacturing, do studies, do the regulatory, and then when you're taking it to market, you have 20 years of security knowing that your product is not going to get knocked off. So LifeWave established that model back in 2002, and we've maintained that model since the day we opened. And so that's why we're going to continue to have a strategic advantage in the marketplace. Stuart Johnson, who runs the DSN, has told me that right now, other companies in the industry are trying to figure out how to duplicate what LifeWave has done because they see this is the way of the future and they just don't even know where to get started.
You think anyone's going to catch us? All right. Tell us a little bit about your faith and how it inspires you to come up with these new inventions.
So, I've been a Christian ever since I was born, initially from birth, and then in my early teens, I went to a Bible study group. So my faith has been very important to me throughout my life. And I used to think that, you know, I would get these ideas and invent, and I realized, you know, that's not what was happening at all. I would be going into prayer, and this information would be downloaded. So I like to think about it as giving God all the credit for the success that I've had, and I honestly don't want to take credit for these inventions. And because I do feel as if they're divinely inspired, and this has, you know, a really funny thing is that when we think of the Holy Bible, we think of that as being a book to learn from and to illuminate humanity. And actually, the Bible is meant to divide, and the Bible is designed when you read it, when someone that's not of faith reads it, they can be very confused and think, well, these are really odd stories. I have no idea what this is about. The truth is, though, if you give over your heart to God and you read through the Bible and do a diligent study, there'll be secrets that will open up and you'll start to understand the true meaning of the words and the teachings in this book. So I'll give you one example. I'll share this. This is something actually last week that I got a divine insight on. And I was meditating on this, and this is where Jesus is talking about, and it depends on whether or not I always read the King James Version, so it depends on which version you're reading. So Jesus says, well, if your eye be single, then your whole body will be filled with light. And there are many ways that people interpret that. And I tend, when I look at if Jesus is speaking, or there's an angel speaking, or the Lord is speaking, I want to take each word literally and look at whether or not it's in Hebrew or Greek and convert that over into numerical codes, see if I can understand what's really going on. And here's something that's absolutely incredible that I just looked at last week. I said, okay, I want to see how many times the word "I" appears in the Bible, and then I want to convert that over into Hebrew and Greek, and then I want to get a number out of that. Long story short, it converts to a wavelength of light at 660 nanometers.
Now, if you go online and look, 660 nanometers is used to upregulate mitochondrial function, but it's the one wavelength of light that improves the health of the eyes. So as the Bible was divinely inspired, it is truly the Word of God. And we should not take away or add one single word, because that will change the numerical codes in the Bible. Okay, we were discussing backstage that you've got a program that you're implementing that you want to really, Meredith had a long talk with us this morning. LifeWave is really legacy company, and we're moving more and more towards a more stronger process of being able to pass it on for generations. Can you tell everyone what you're working on? And I really wanted that this is a team. I mean, if he only mentioned it to the elites so far, but let them know what you're working toward, because I believe that would really, it gives you an inspiration that your efforts are going to go on for generations.
Yeah, there's an insane amount of work that we're doing behind the scenes in every facet of the company. First, with regards to LifeWave itself, our foundation, which is based on health, longevity, improving quality of life for people, our ultimate goal is to stop and reverse human aging. And so we continue to look at biological models that don't age, that have incredibly long lifespans, so we can learn and see how we can apply this in technology. So of course, we're just releasing X2O, which is another step that we have in that direction. And I think it's fair to say we're looking at a number of novel products. One of them we just got a patent on, another one I filed recently. So we'll easily break through 250 patents by next year, easily. But what we're looking at is very important.